Hi there, I'm Tom Field. I'm Senior Vice President of Editorial with Information Security Media Group. My topic of conversation today is CMMC compliance. The time is now. Joining me to talk about this are Robert Teague, Director, CMMC Services for Redspin, the division of Clearwater, and Dr. Thomas Graham. He's VP and CISO for Redspin, again, a division of Clearwater. Dr. Graham, Robert, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's start here. We've been hearing about this for a few years now. What is the status of CMMC and why is it so urgent, particularly now?
So, Tom, that is a great question. The CMMC rule is actually sitting in the White House's Office of Management and Budget, or OMB, particularly their division of the Office of Information and Regulatory Affairs, or OIRA. You know, the DoD loves acronyms. They'll have it for a 90-day period where they'll review it, then they'll release it for a 60-day public comment period sometime this fall. Once that's complete, the DoD must address all the comments that have been adjudicated or at least put on for the rule. And then sometime in 2024, that rule should be finalized. And then we should see by the end of that year verbiage in the contracts for the contractors. Why the urgency? I think it has to do with the increase of cyber attacks in recent years that kind of served as a wake-up call to the Department of Defense, that where they needed to shift their mindset from a reactive cybersecurity stance to a more proactive cybersecurity stance. They really are relying on industries such as Redspin and other partners to assist them in this due to their limited resources within the Department of Defense.
So talk about the interim joint surveillance voluntary assessment program. Why has that been so important to this point?
Well, first of all, I think that's probably a mouthful more than anybody would ever want to say on a daily basis.
Yes.
So the joint surveillance program, as it's commonly known, the easiest way to look at it, Tom, is, and by the way, great name, Tom. I can't argue with your name. Look at it like it's an early adopter program. Originally, when CMMC come out, it was going to be the phased approach, and within the first year, there was going to be a limited number of contracts that would be those early adopters. Well, since CMMC's went through some changes, now what can the department do to see if this program is viable? It doesn't have merit, or our organization is going to be able to get through it. So what they come up was the Joint Surveillance Program. It's a joint assessment via DCMA DIBCAC, which is one of the DoD's assessment arms, and the C3PAOs, which are the certified third-party assessors for CMMC. Essentially, what we do is the C3PAOs conduct a NIST 800-171 assessment in conjunction with the DoD DCMA team performing what's considered a DIBCAC high. This is done kind of for a couple of reasons. One, so that way they can start seeing the processes and procedures in action. Are they going to work? Is there shortcomings? Is there hiccups? If there are, the C3POs can then provide information back to the Cyber AB and the DoD to tweak the program before the final rule went live or the CMMC assessment process was formally released. Now, the second part of it is to get organizations going. So upon successful completion, there's a couple of things that happens. If you pass a joint surveillance assessment in the short term, what you receive is called a DIBCAC high certification. What the C3PAOs have been told multiple times by the department as well as the Cyber AB is that once the final rule is complete, then any organization that has passed a joint surveillance under DIBCAC high that DIBCAC high will convert over to a CMMC level 2 certification. So it gives a little bit of glimpse. It gives some early movers, honestly, some advantage in the ecosystem. But that's one of the ways the department is trying to get things moving while we're waiting on the final rule.
Oh, that's excellent context. So what I'm hearing is, despite the rumors that say otherwise, CMMC is not going away. What does that mean to our audience today?
Well, first, I think the audience should be aware that CMMC is merely a validation of the requirements that are already in place. The DFARS, or the Defense Federal Acquisition Regulation Supplement, 252.204-7012 was mandated back in December 31st of 2017, which really told contractors they needed to employ NIST 800-171 as a base security network framework. It was originally established that those contractors would self-attest that they are abiding by those 110 practices. But after numerous spot checks and numerous data breaches, loss of funds, etc., the DoD opted to enlist the assistance of industry to help validate those requirements, which is where CMMC is coming from. It is not going to go away. Many contracting organizations, in fact, are already talking with the C3PAOs, and they're actually getting on their schedules now. Many are still waiting on the rule to finalize, and as you mentioned, Tom, they're listening to those rumors that it's going to go away. It's this latter group that's going to be stuck in the doors waiting to get in, so to speak, when the rule goes final. So I guess the bigger question for those particular members of the audience is, what are your competitors doing? Because if they're already in line, that means they have an advantage over you.
Now, you said before we came on camera here, stop waiting, start preparing. What does that mean, and what should contractors do first?
Oh, that's the $50 million question, Tom. So as Rob mentioned, where all this come from was the DFARS 7012 requirements, and that has been enforceable for multiple years now. This is why every C3PAO out there, as well as various folks from the Department of Defense, continue to say, stop waiting, start doing, because the requirements have been there. Requirements have been there for, 7 years now, essentially. So all of these organizations that are waiting to start, they're putting themselves in jeopardy. They're putting themselves in jeopardy of not only being behind their competitors when the final rule hits and CMMC goes live, but it's also putting them at a disadvantage with being able to accurately self-report their NIST 800-171 score into the SPURS system, which is the Supplier Performance Risk System. This is one of the requirements under DFARS 7019, which is already enforceable. So if an organization continues to wait, they're going to fall further behind where their competitors are. The reason I say that is, from start to finish, if you've never went down this route before, on average, it takes 8 months to a year to be able to get everything in place. And even for those organizations that have been doing it, as we've been conducting joint surveillance assessments, we're finding they still are having misunderstandings with what the requirements are. So stop waiting, start preparing, reach out to C3POs, the RPOs, all of the folks in the ecosystem. That's what we're here to help you for. So that way you don't get in trouble with anybody.
So what are your thoughts on the rising allegations under the DOJ Civil Fraud Initiative, particularly related to the False Claims Act, of course, related to cybersecurity? I'm thinking about the cases involving Penn State and Verizon. Do you expect these to become more common in the near future?
I do. I expect it to be more common. And, just looking at the Department of Justice, their website, I believe they are sticking to their guns. According to them, they are ensuring that the citizens' tax dollars are protected from fraud and abuse. That includes those that are not abiding by the current regulations as far as cybersecurity. I think in that article that they also had posted on their site was since I think it was September 30th, 2021, I believe it was, they've obtained more than $5.6 billion in settlements and judgments from civil cases involving fraud, false claims acts, and improper cybersecurity practices. It's definitely going to be more common. The False Claims Act is one of their most important tools available to them to deter and hold accountable those who seek to misuse the funds or like I said, not comply with the regulations. We've also heard, I don't know if it's true, but apparently they have been increasing the number of personnel specifically to address the False Claims Acts and of any future findings that come across.
Well said. Now, talk to me about Redspin. Again, you're a division of Clearwater. How are you helping your customers now prepare for CMMC?
Well, I like to tell folks, Tom, that We just fake it really well. We really don't know what we're doing. I'm joking. So Redspin, as being the first authorized C3PAO under CMMC, we help our organizations and our customers and our clients in several different ways. Being a C3PAO, we can help consult with an organization. That means we can help prepare them to get them ready for an assessment, point out any issues they may have overlooked. What this advantage provides, especially from our perspective, is that we can take all of the information that we've accumulated through doing joint surveillance and being in the ecosystem as long as we have, and give them actionable intel, point out those shortcomings that they may just not have thought of, or they may have thought that it was implemented correctly, and it's not there. The second way that we can help organizations is, of course, training. In addition to being an authorized C3PAO, Redspin is also an LTP. An LTP is an organization in the CMMC ecosystem that is authorized to provide certified training that is put in place by the CAICO, which is one of the organizations under the Cyber AB. Currently, there's two certifications that are live. Those are the CCP and the CCA. CCP stands for Certified CMMC Practitioner, and this is the entry-level certification for any individual that wants to actually operate within the ecosystem, potentially as an assessor. We actually advocate for any of our clients or customers to send somebody to CCP training. The reason being is that training provides an overview of how we got to this point, what's the governance, how to do scoping, how to go through the process. And it goes through all 110 practices in NIST 800-171 from both a consulting standpoint as well as a practitioner standpoint. For those folks that want to take it a step further, there's the CCA. The CMMC certified assessors are those individuals that actually come in and perform those level 2 assessments if an organization stores, processes, and stores, processes, and transmits CUI underneath the requirements of CMMC. The third way that we can come in and help organizations is being that authorized C3PA. We can certify. We can come in and do the assessments. The assessments are based upon the CMMC assessment process that will be published after rulemaking by the DoD and the Cyber AB. And finally, we also offer managed services. These are full service, cost-effective managed services, cloud services, and managed security and compliance services that have been built from the ground up with CMMC in mind. So with having these types of services with CMMC already baked in, one of the prevailing questions is, once the final rule comes out, what are going to be the standards that the MSPs, MSSPs, or any of these other external service providers, what are they going to be held to? By building it with CMMC from the foundation, our customers have assurance that once they go for assessment, having these third-party services are not going to be a detriment, but they're going to be an asset to their organization.
Very thorough. One last question for you. We've established CMMC is not going away. It's time to stop waiting and start preparing. What do you gentlemen see on the CMMC horizon for you to take out that crystal ball?
Oh, wow, Tom. Well, first of all, Dr. Graham and I are heading to Bora Bora to put our feet up and have some drinks. But no, on the CMMC horizon, first of all, the rules got to get finalized, which should be sometime early next year here. From there, they need to continue building the ecosystem. So right now there's only 48, I believe, is the last number of certified third-party assessing organizations. There's only about 150 or maybe a little bit more of that of the actual certified assessors. And out of those, it's a very limited that are already blessed off by the Department of Defense. So that ecosystem definitely has to grow in order to tackle the amount of assessments that have to be conducted for all these contractors. Once that's done, NIST 800-171 Revision 3 is going to be released sometime around the same time the CMMC rule goes final. That is going to have to be adjusted into the program and revamped at the end of next year or sometime in the following year. Then the DoD needs to take focus and shift to our overseas partners, those that are in, Australia, Germany, Japan, etc., because they also are providing valuable services to the Department of Defense and the organizations overseas. So they will also have to fall in line with the CMMC assessments.
Excellent. Gentlemen, I appreciate your time and insight today. You've shared some valuable information. I'm grateful for that. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. We appreciate your time. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely, Tom. Anytime.
Again, the topic has been CMMC compliance. The time is now. You've heard from Robert Teague, Director of CMMC Services, and Dr. Thomas Graham, VP and CISO, both with Redspin, a division of Clearwater. For Information Security Media Group, I'm Tom Field. Thank you so much for giving us your time and attention today.